What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Today, I want to talk about the second part of my series on the story of the soul. I'm talking about the miraculousness. So, my message is that the soul is born pure of a virgin, miraculous, buried and rejected, yet it still lives. In the last video, I talked about the purity, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the miraculousness, an important aspect of the soul. It's a characteristic or a quality or an attribute. When we take the path to the soul, we will experience miracles, and the miracles that Jesus performed are basically symbolic of what happens to us on the path to the soul. So, for instance, the miracle of Jesus raising Lazarus, a dead man, that points to us. The dead man is us. On the path to the soul, we are reawakened to our divinity. It's like we left a part of ourselves behind in childhood. And as we get closer to that part of us that we left behind in childhood, as we do the work, we will kind of regress and go back towards the state of childhood, basically. And we start to remember the magic, the magic of childhood, the innocence, the purity, all these qualities that we kind of forgot about, that were lingering in the background of our lives. When we were children, especially, we were very close to these qualities. We were naturally joyful, naturally happy and curious and playful. Those are like qualities of the soul. If we go towards those qualities and we start working on the path, we will start to feel these qualities a little bit more strongly. And it's basically an uncovering of what's already there. So, we were born with these innocence, with these qualities of innocence, purity, magic, and we kind of forget that they're there as we grow older. It's like the civilization process, the process of becoming domesticated to live in society, to be a functional human being, becomes so important. It overtakes these aspects of childhood, that state of innocence and purity that we were born with. We were born pure and innocent, but very few people ever say anything about any of this, and there's very little knowledge of the process of spiritual awakening in the world. So that's what I'm here to share with you guys: the miraculousness of the path to the soul. The soul is miraculous. It's us. It's who we are, and we're one with this. So when Jesus healed Lazarus and raised him from the dead, it's our own awakening to our own divinity. That's what happens on the process to the soul. We become aware that we're one with God. We become aware of our infinite nature, of our true nature, of our eternal goodness, and the wholesomeness and the oneness that is the source of all living things, of God, basically. We get closer to this aspect of ourselves and we become spiritually awakened, and we are realized. Now, this is a long, arduous process that we have to go through in order to experience that, though. It's not just going to happen overnight, but that's part of the awakening to the soul. It's part of the path. It's part of the story. Another thing I want to talk about as far as the miraculousness is that, in that state of childhood that we enjoyed when we were young and we were children, that we forgot about as we grew up and lived our lives and became adults, an important aspect of that is the holding environment. When we're young and we're children, we have a sense of being taken care of. We don't feel much worry. It just feels naturally like everything is fine the way it is. And that innocent outlook on life, that's called the holding environment. As we're young and we're children, our parents are holding us and taking care of us, soothing us. And we have the knowledge and the instincts to know that everything's going to be fine. And that holding environment is supportive of that feeling that everything's going to be fine. We don't have anything to worry about. So there's a basic trust in reality. We lose that as we get older because, again, we start to take on an identity. We adopt these agendas that we think are important, but we lose that innocence and we forget about it, and we don't ever, so we forget that they ever existed, that state of magical childhood, childlike innocence. So that holding environment, we can rekindle, reawaken, become reacquainted with that within us. It's deep within ourselves. It's never gone. It's never left. It was always there. It's just something that we forgot about. So on the path to the soul is like reawakening that, becoming, having a new relationship with that aspect of ourselves. The holding environment is a very important aspect. Like, it affects us as we grow older. If we don't have a supportive, loving holding environment, we grow up dysfunctional, basically. So this is a very important aspect. And we lose trust of that holding environment. We have ego. We start to be infatuated and become obsessed with, multiple other things, trying to get good grades, for example. And that becomes more important than that state of childlike innocence that we were born with, and we forget all about it. So the miraculousness is being reintroduced to this aspect of ourselves that we left behind in childhood. This is very important. Also, the miraculousness, what I want to talk about is that, the miracles that we experience on the path of the soul are many. They're like all the miracles Jesus performed in the Bible basically point to us and our experience. Another example I want to talk about is when Jesus turned water into wine. Like, on the path of the soul, there's a lot of emptiness we're going to run into. And it feels deficient. It feels void. It feels worthless. It feels like this is the worst thing ever. At first, it's terrifying. It's disorienting and it's disturbing. But with time and with the right attitude, with patience, we can see that this is actually reality. This is part of our reality. And if we avoid it by, overworking, for instance, if we avoid that emptiness, we are going away from the path of the soul. But what I want to talk about is that miracle, that miraculousness points to that emptiness at some point, very, very far down the path. As long as we do our work, it starts to transform. It becomes a loving, holding environment. It becomes like a refuge. And we start to crave it. It starts to show us its power, and we become one with it. We dissolve in it. But it's not like we're going to be dead, like we're going to be gone forever, because that's the instinct. The instinct is to avoid that emptiness. But the truth is that emptiness will start turning into a fullness, into a presence, a miraculousness, a holiness, a divinity. And it outpours from the inside of us out into the universe, and it shows us that we're one with the universe. It's like that little grain of mustard seed that transforms and becomes a huge tree, and it encompasses the whole, circles the whole universe. So the emptiness that we experience on the path of the soul becomes a fullness. The miracle of Jesus turning the water into wine, that's what that points to. The sorrow that we feel, the suffering that we experience on the path of the soul with the emptiness becomes a joy. It turns into something joyful. It's a triumph, a majesty, a holiness. So the emptiness, what we think is empty or what we think was water, turns into wine. It turns into fullness. It turns into presence, immaculate divinity, holiness. That's one of the miracles that Jesus performs that points to our own spiritual awakening. That's what it points to, our own spiritual awakening. So the miraculousness is a huge, important piece of the story of the soul. It's healing, basically. So, Jesus healed all these people, all these miracles that he did. This the same kind of healing that we experience on the path of the soul, miraculous healing that we didn't even know, things we didn't even know were wrong with us, like unconscious lack of self-worth. Like, nobody ever thinks about that. That's a problem, but that's part of the healings that we experience, the miraculousness of the healings. There's a preciousness, a pearl beyond price the value of this healing is significant for our development and our growth, because we don't feel normal, we don't feel right. We just know something is wrong. The world is dysfunctional. Things don't work right. We know something is wrong. And without experiencing the miraculousness of the soul, we'll just continue down that path. And it's a detriment to humanity, a detriment to mankind to go down the path without knowing God. God is important. We need to know about this. So the story of the soul is born pure of a virgin, miraculous, buried and rejected, yet still lives forever. And today I'm talking about the miraculousness of the soul. It has these properties that we have to experience for ourselves. I can sit here and talk about this all day, but unless we actually experience it for ourselves, it doesn't do much good. So we have to continue the path and see what this is about for ourselves and have our own experience so that we can kind of certify this and know that this is a real thing in our own experience. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent.